Barrett Taglerino here, and I'm back for another basic jazz soloing lesson. In the previous video, we talked about what happened on a short 2-5-1 when you played down a scale starting from the tones of the 2 chord. So we did that in C last time. Now I want to play in F major, just to keep learning shapes. So the 2 chord is G minor 7, 5 chord is C7, and then the 1 is F major 7. I'm going to play that all here out of pattern 2. Here's the F major scale. Okay, and we probably want to know where the chord tones are, so those are the arpeggios of the 3 chords. That's G minor 7, C7, and F major 7. So, in the other video, we started from the tones of the 2 chord, but actually you don't have to do that because the 2 chord, you can play any of the notes of the scale over it on the downbeat and it'll sound good because those are all nice extensions on that chord. After 3, 5, and 7, let's check out 2. You can start on the A, and that'll give you, if you stayed there, it would be G minor 9, right? So that's cool. The 4th or the 11th will give you G minor 11, and then finally the E on the top. That's G minor 13 or maybe G minor 6, depending on whether you have the 7th in there someplace. So your line can start from all 7 notes of the scale, but the trick is, when you start from those extensions, you have to fix the line so that you get a chord tone on the 2nd measure especially. You don't want to land on the 4th, for example, of F on the downbeat because it'll sound like you're playing over the wrong chord and it'll sound like a mistake. So to do that, we'll add a chromatic note, or we'll use an enclosure. So the first one starts from A, and we want to land on the chord tone of C7. So we're using an enclosure there to land on the 3rd of that chord. And from there you can just descend the F major scale. And you'll wind up on the 3rd of that chord. Okay, now then on C, we're going to want to land on the 5th of the next chord. So if we have G minor, we're going to use a passing tone right after that note. So that on the C and the F, we get the 5th of each respective chord. Yeah. So I'm reaching up with my pinky and dragging down from C flat to B flat. Now we're going to use the same passing tone if we start from E. And that will give us 7ths on the 2 following chords, right? Now you can add what am I trying to say? You can use a passing tone in other spots if you don't manage to grab the one that I just mentioned. Especially that first chromatic example, going right to it. Sometimes it's hard to hear that in advance 2 beats away from the chord you're going to. So you might wind up doing... You might wind up using the chromatic note at the end just to fix your line so that it lands on the F chord. And that's fine. It sounds good. That's actually the F bebop major scale. Yeah. One thing that people do is just think of the 2-5-1 only when they're playing the chords, But when you're soloing, you can just kind of ignore the 2 chord and treat the entire measure as the 5. So if you do it that way, which is what I was doing at the beginning, you can think, I just need a passing tone whenever I have the root of the dominant chord or the 3rd. So if you are starting on the downbeat of measure 1 and you happen to be on the root of the dominant chord or the 3rd of the dominant chord, that's where you need your passing tone to be in the line. Excuse me. And also if you start on the 6th degree of your dominant chord, that's where you need a passing tone, and this is where I'm using the enclosure. Probably the best one is to stick it near the end like this. Although you do get a little weirdness. I think it sounds good, but because we're trying to train our ears to hear the really obvious stuff first, I'm just going with that little enclosure. I want to remind everybody that this is only for a 2-5-1 in a major key, and not for a simple 2-5, which could appear in all sorts of spots in a progression. You could have like 1, 3, 6 dominant, 2, 5, 1, and that little 2-5 looking thing up there, that's not a 2-5-1. So you would not want to play G major over that. That's really 3 in the key of F, right? So when you have a 2-5, you have to check to see if it's followed by the expected 1 chord. Then you can do all these examples on it. But if it's just a 2-5, then you want to do something else that I don't want to get into today. But that is covered in Jazz Soloing Basics, Chapter 16. There could be bunches of 2-5s all over the place, and each one has its own little idiosyncrasies that you can learn to hear and accommodate while you're soloing. So thank you very much for listening today. I would like you to subscribe to my channel if you can. Post any requests for other video topics, observations, questions, left-handed compliments, the digital version of rotten fruit and vegetables. Bring it all my way, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much.